giving you a speech and trying to like keep you awake through that, I figured I'd kind of make this talk a little bit more conversational. And really the whole focus of the talk is going to be kind of focusing on the why of crypto. And I'm assuming if you're here for the conference, you already are convinced of crypto, but I often see that it's really hard to convince outsiders of crypto of why crypto is important. So I want to have this talk be conversational so we can talk about the why, and I can give you ways that you might be able to explain crypto to people that are outside of crypto, and so that you can help convince them that crypto is real and we should continue to build on it. So with that, I will get started. So I should just say next slide when, okay. So about me, I went to USC, I studied engineering, and then I decided that I wanted to become an investment banker because that sounded cool in college. So then I ended up getting a job at Goldman Sachs, and that's what made me move up to Silicon Valley. And so I worked at Goldman, and eventually I realized that I didn't want to be a banker. It was just not my thing. I'm more engineer-minded, and so I left, and I was trying to figure out what to do next. Eventually, I figured out maybe I'll try the VC thing. So then I got a job at Andreessen Horowitz. And so I worked at Andreessen Horowitz for 2 years. I was on the deal team there, and I focused a lot on enterprise investments as well as a little bit of crypto. So when I was there, we made the investment in Coinbase. And then I left A16Z, and I taught myself how to code so that I can speak the lingo of engineers and understand things better from an engineering perspective, and ended up joining Coinbase as a software engineer. And that was kind of my foray into crypto. And then I left Coinbase, I started my own company called TruStory, and we were building a crypto app where we use crypto to coordinate how debates happen online. And so we use the crypto as like a social coordination tool. Ultimately, we realized that we were a little bit too early to the market, and so we decided that we were going to return the investor money and open source the technology. And now my focus, smiley face, is to just educate people about crypto, because I think we're still in that education phase and we need a lot more people and a lot more bridges to be built. So hopefully you guys will be building those bridges so people like me can build really cool companies. With that, let's get started. So I want to keep this talk, as I said, interactive, and ask you a question. So what do you think Bitcoin is? Like, what does Bitcoin mean to you? How many people in the room would say it's money? Okay, but like 1/5. How many people would say technology? Okay, that's more than money, interesting. How many people would say it's a movement? Okay, a lot of people. How many people say none of the above and they have their own answer? What's your answer?
Asset.
It's an asset. Okay, next slide. It's all of the above, right? Like, it's money, it's technology, and it's a movement. And that's honestly what makes Bitcoin so powerful, because the combination of these three means that it's really a revolution. Like, it's a change in how we do things. And that's what I'll go into in the rest of this presentation. So like I said, it's a revolution. It's all of them. So when someone asks you, okay, what is crypto? Is it money? Is it technology? Is it a movement? It's all. We really can't define it as one or the other. It's everything, and that's what makes it so cool. So, like I said, it's a revolution. And the reason it's a revolution is simple. Because it, for the first time in history, allows us to socially coordinate rules at a global scale. And I'll get into what that means and why this is so powerful, but that's fundamentally what Bitcoin and crypto is it allows us to create a new set of rules, a protocol, whatever you want to call it, and coordinate at a global scale for the first time ever. Like before, 100 years ago, if we wanted to coordinate and create our own economy, our own communities, we had to do it very locally. But with the internet and with crypto, we can finally coordinate our own economies at a global scale. And that is why it's a revolution. So let's get into that a little bit. Fundamentally, before crypto, or even today actually, the biggest problem in the current system is that there's a giant power imbalance. And I'll explain what I mean. So go to the next slide. Okay, so there's a massive power imbalance. Basically, who do you think? Okay, there's two sides to the coin, right? One side is like the government, the banks, and large companies. The other side is all of us. And which side do you think the government is on? Okay, great. So next slide. So that's the government, the banks, and companies, and this is us. We're kind of just like sitting here being controlled by them. And this power imbalance, okay, so that power imbalance it's gotten really bad to the point where the people really don't have a say in how these systems work. We don't have a say in who has access to these systems. Like, we're just kind of being controlled and manipulated by the government, the banks, and companies. And that's not to say that they're bad people and we should fight them, but I think as people, we need to have a voice and a say in how these systems are built and who has access and what these systems look like. But today, we just don't have that. And so, wait, go back. So basically, this is us, and that's the government. So we're kind of here in the bow and arrow, and we're trying to fight the government or banks, but we have before crypto, we had no tools to do that. We're kind of powerless, basically. But now, what crypto does is it gives us something to compete with. It gives us real ammo, real tools to actually defend ourselves. And that's why crypto is so powerful, because it, for the first time, gives us a voice. And not just a voice, it gives us an option to exit as well. And I'll share what I mean. So, what does this give us? What does this give us? Basically, crypto gives us tools to build financial and economic systems from scratch. We get to experiment with what rules these systems have, who has access to these systems, how these systems look and feel, where they exist. Basically, we can now engineer our own systems because, people make systems, even the current financial systems, right? They were all made by people like you and me. The government is not like God, right? They're just people too, sitting behind the government. They're protected behind this wall, but they're people too. And so all these rules were made by people, and now crypto gives us the ability to also think about our own rules and see how we can make the rules better. And that's powerful. And so not only does it give us a voice in how we create these systems, but the more powerful thing is it gives us the option to exit. And this is where, this is the most powerful thing about crypto, because a voice was not enough. Before crypto, we can fight banks, we can fight the government, we can do all this, but they won't listen because they just have so much power. They have no desire to listen. But with crypto, because we can literally create our own economy, because crypto is money, and money is what you need to create an economy, right? It gives us the option to opt out of the existing system and go build our own economy for the first ever time. And that option to exit is fundamentally what we need to create the counterbalance that we need to say, look, hey government, hey banks, you can keep doing this, but we have this other option. So unless you change and improve how your systems work, we might choose to get up and leave and create our own system. And that gives you a lot of power, and that's powerful. So really, to me at least, this is what crypto means. Like, it gives you the option to exit. And you don't have to exit. If you think the current financial system is great for you and you have no problems with it, you can choose to stay in it. But the option to exit is really, really important to preserve like human rights, basically. And I kind of talked about that. Next slide. And the other big point I want to make is exit amplifies voice. So, like I said, right, voice is important. Like if there's a new regulatory policy that gets created, the government likes to make us feel like we have the option to voice our opinion by giving us the option to vote on these new policies. But voice is typically, just having voice is not enough because they still have a lot of power. And what exit does is basically, exit amplifies voice. So now that we also have the option to exit, they take our voice more seriously. And so, going back to that seesaw, we have checks and balances now. Now we're kind of playing footsies with each other, and we can actually listen to each other. And we don't have to be super controlled by the government, the banks, and other institutions. Okay, so now that you understand sort of why crypto is so powerful, why it helps kind of create a more powerful counterbalance, I want to talk about sort of why crypto itself is super interesting. And one of the things I realized recently is crypto is like super anti-fragile. And the reason it's anti-fragile is because not only does it allow us to exit the current system, but, next slide, but it allows us to exit, like, even within crypto, you can exit crypto systems and enter a new one. And what I mean by that is, as you know, crypto blockchains can fork, right? If you don't like the rules of one blockchain, you can fork it and go to another blockchain. So in that way, like, not only can you exit the current financial system, but you can exit Bitcoin and create your own economy if you want. And the ability to fork and keep like creating like sub-economies is what makes it super anti-fragile, because if any system sucks, every person has the option to exit and create their own system. That means the original system has an incentive to do good by the people that it's serving. Because you always have an option to exit and create your own system into infinity. And so that's why, people who didn't like Bitcoin exited and created Ethereum. People who don't like Ethereum exited, created like another version of Ethereum maybe, or EOS, or all these other sub-blockchains because they didn't like the bigger system. And so that ability to exit makes crypto super anti-fragile. And it keeps the checks and balances in place. Okay, so now I want to talk about some common criticisms, because one thing I was told before this talk is there's still a lot of misunderstanding about crypto in India, and people have all these criticisms about what crypto is, and I'm sure that if you're trying to explain it to your parents or your grandmother or whoever it is, friends, they probably come up with common criticisms. So what I like to do when I'm learning a new technology is, usually I try to come up with the criticisms myself, and then see if I can answer those myself. Because if I don't have an answer to that, then that criticism is probably valid. So in the rest of this talk, I'm gonna go through all the criticisms that I came up with when I was getting into crypto. And then I didn't find the answers to these right away, but over the last 4 years, I figured out how to answer these criticisms, and I want to share them with you so that when people give you these criticisms, you can have the same answers if you want. So the first one is, a lot of people will come up to me and be like, this is so fringe. This is no one's gonna use this. Like, this is like super like fringe. And it's like, dude, like everything starts in the fringe. A technology doesn't start in the mainstream and then all of a sudden become something. Everything starts in the fringe. Social networks started in the fringe, right? Like the internet started in the fringe. Like everything starts in the fringe. So, and if you know the Gartner hype cycle for how technology gets adopted, you can just give them the Gartner hype cycle and be like, hey, look, this is how technology always happens. Like it starts in the fringe and then it gets adopted. So to me, this is one of the weakest criticisms. Like if a person says that, just give them the Gartner hype cycle. Illicit use. This is a big one, especially in India. And I remember last time when I came, a lot of people were like scared that Bitcoin is going to be used for bad stuff like drugs and black market and all this stuff. But like, that's, in my opinion, that's a really weak argument because crypto is a tool. And as you know, any tool can be used for good or for bad. Like, literally you can take a hammer and be like, oh, nobody should be allowed to use a hammer because you can kill people with a hammer. Of course you can, but people know that that's, like, you know, like there's always, you can always use tools for bad and good. You're not gonna just say no to technology because it can be used for bad stuff. Like, even social networks, right? Like, how awesome are social networks in the sense that we get to connect with people around the world and, you know, coordinate with people all around the world, but social networks can also be used for bad, right? So you can say that basically about any technology, in the sense that any technology can be used for like bad stuff. So the argument that it can be used for illicit use is wrong. And also, if you think about it, like even the rupee, like it gets used for illicit use all the time. Money gets used for illicit use all the time. So how is Bitcoin any different? Aren't people using money to buy drugs? There's black market in the fiat market too. So the idea that Bitcoin is all of a sudden going to exponentially increase illicit use is just, it's a flawed argument. Blockchain, not Bitcoin. I'm sure you guys have probably heard this where like people are like, oh, like you blockchain, but Bitcoin, no, because it's like it's too fringe or it's going to be used for illicit use. But like, again, going back to that first point I made, where the whole beauty of crypto is it allows us to socially coordinate rules at a global scale. And you can't have that if you don't have some kind of incentive to coordinate around. Like, you need the crypto to coordinate and accept like a universal truth and a universal set of rules. If you don't have that crypto, then what is the incentive to coordinate and create this universal database of truth? Otherwise, like most of you know, it's just a database. So if someone says blockchain, not Bitcoin, then that's a flawed argument too, because the most powerful thing about crypto is that it gives you an incentive to coordinate these rules. And without that incentive, it's pointless. And that's not to say that, you know, like I'm not an expert in private blockchains and whether there's a real use case for that, because I've heard arguments on both sides, and this is the one area that I still am not fully, I don't have a strong argument either way on. But like, my gut says that private blockchains, I'm not sure how useful they are, but because like they don't have the crypto to coordinate, so like what is the point? It's like you can just have a shared database to do the same thing. So if someone says blockchain, not Bitcoin, I think like that's a flawed argument because it removes the whole point of crypto, which is that we can socially coordinate. Why not use PayPal? I mean, again, going back, like PayPal is a centralized database. Like the government can tell PayPal to not give you money or not give you an account. And again, we're trying to not have the government have that much power. So literally by using PayPal, PayPal is regulated. PayPal can operate without financial licenses and all that. So it's not PayPal doesn't give you the option to exit. PayPal is controlled by the government at the end of the day. Too slow. I mean, this is silly too. Like YouTube was impossible when the internet started. So like, you know, we're in that phase where like we're just getting started. Give it another 5 to 10 years and watch how the technology improves. So if someone says too slow, just say, well, YouTube wasn't possible when the internet started, so that's a flawed argument. Price is too volatile. And this is the most legit, probably the most legit criticism, because the price is really volatile, and it's unclear if that will ever stabilize in the near future. And I think this is where, as a community, we need to be doing a lot more to make the price more stable. And what I mean by that is, okay, so why is the price volatile? It's volatile because people are still buying and selling randomly. Miners mine, but they need to sell Bitcoin to keep their operations up, so they sell. And users are coming in and out. There's no real market yet. It's kind of random of when people buy and sell. And prices will stabilize when there's, supply and demand kind of equalizes. But for that to really happen, what needs to happen is we need to move away from speculation, obviously, and get into something that's more stable. But what will make that happen? And the key thing that's missing in the crypto space for making that happen is we really need a, okay, so sorry, I meant to get into this. So what's missing to make the price more stable is, right now, Bitcoin is so volatile because people are buying and selling for speculation, right? And go back. And the reason they're doing that is because they have no reason to, they're still using basically the existing fiat system to buy and sell Bitcoin. So basically what I'm trying to convey here is Bitcoin is still fundamentally tied to the existing system. We can't have, Bitcoin doesn't have a self-sustaining economy. To buy Bitcoin, we still need cash, and I can't really use Bitcoin to really do anything in real life. So we're kind of still attached by the hip to the current financial system. And the price is gonna stay volatile as long as we're attached to the existing system. It's not gonna stabilize. The only time it will really stabilize is if we can create a self-sustaining crypto economy. So we need an economy where Bitcoin or any crypto can be used on its own to actually power the entire economy. So we need a closed loop system, not Bitcoin and being an open loop system where it's reliant on the financial system. We need a system where it's closed loop and it operates on its own. And until that happens, the price is going to be volatile. That's just the reality of it. So that's probably the biggest risk for Bitcoin is how long will it take us builders to create this self-sustaining economy so that Bitcoin's price becomes stable and it actually becomes real. Because until then, it's just a toy and we're just going to keep speculating. It's not real money until it can be used to basically power your lives. And that's fundamentally where the biggest risk for Bitcoin lies today. So whether it becomes mainstream or not relies on us to create that, next slide, that closed loop system. And so this is where really cool efforts I don't know if you know about seasteading, but it's he's building this, I forget what his name is, but basically it's an entrepreneur and he's building a new city in an island, basically in the middle of a sea. And over time, I think he wants to power that island with crypto. So instead of using fiat money, he might use crypto as an economy to power that new city. So those are the kinds of really ambitious things that we need created for us to create this closed loop system and for this new financial system to take birth. Until then, we're just going to be attached by the hip to the existing financial system. And basically, Bitcoin's going to continue to be just digital gold until that happens. So for Bitcoin to become the vision it wants to become, or any crypto to become the vision it wants to become, we have to create this system. And who knows how long that will take. It might take 5 years, it might take 10 years, it might take 50 years. And that's why I say that Bitcoin crypto is a revolution, because this is not going to happen overnight. There's so many things that need to happen for us to create this closed loop system. and we're going to keep working at it. So if you're in it just for, like the short-term stuff, I don't think that's a good idea, because we're not going to see results probably for another decade or even 50 years, because all these bridges need to be built to build this closed loop system. Government said it's bad. My grandma says this, my mom says this, and the government, of course, wants you to think it's bad. Why? Because it threatens them, right? Like I said, it gives you an option to exit, and no one wants their power to be taken away. That's fundamental human desires, and you don't want your power to be taken away. You're going to be scared if your power is taken away. So of course they're going to tell you it's bad. So I think that's like a weak argument again. And final point I want to make is trust in people versus trust in math. So there's two sides to this coin, right? There's the government and banks and institutions who kind of are going to preach to you that, it's important, you trust us, we place trust in us, that's important, people thrive on trusting institutions, all this stuff. So there's that camp of people who don't want to trust code, but they want to trust people. And then there's the engineer-minded people who want to trust just code, they want to trust just math, and they love Bitcoin because, you just have to trust the code, you don't have to trust people. And there's always going to be a fight. Okay, do we trust just the math or do we trust the people? And really, I think neither side is wrong, because you can't just have trust in math. You still need the people. You can't have just trust in people. You need a little bit of a counterbalance, objectivity. Really, we need both sides to work together to basically create, we need to basically work together instead of fighting each other. So what crypto does is it allows us to create systems where not only do you trust the math, but you also trust people, and we need to all work together. So the idea, what I'm trying to say is, when the government tells you that crypto is bad, we shouldn't be fighting them, because that's not going to get us anywhere. What we need to do is we need to show them that yes, trust in institutions is fine, but we also should use this new system where we can also openly, transparently see all the rules so that we can have a balanced and fair system. So we need to be working together instead of fighting the government and saying, oh, they're terrible, and the government saying, oh, this crypto thing is terrible, you should never use it. Neither side is wrong. They're both right, and we need to just work together. So takeaways are, next slide. So again, crypto is not a technology, it's not just money, it's not just a movement, it's really the option to exit, and it's about human rights. It's about your right as a person to have the option to exit if you want. And without that option, basically you're a slave to the system. And so crypto is about human rights, and it's a movement, it's a revolution. And because you have the option to exit, you have freedom. We have the freedom to create your own economy and create your own systems. And last thing, don't fight, educate, because we really need to work together. Because if we fight the government, what they're going to do is only try to create more regulations to make it harder on us. So that's not good either, because we haven't fully exited their system. We're still tied to their system. So for us to even have this option to exit, we need to work with them and allow them to create more friendly regulations so that we can go off and create our economies on our own like we want to. And that's it.
If you like our videos and want more information about cryptocurrency and new ICO, please subscribe our YouTube channel and press the bell icon. Thank you.